In Palestine, at least 13 people were killed on Friday morning in a series of Israeli airstrikes targeting the Jabalia refugee camp and the city of Khan Yunis in Gaza, as the Israeli genocide campaign on the enclave marks its 91st consecutive day. The National Assembly of Venezuela ratified with a clear majority the current board of directors for a new legislative term of 2024-2025. In Argentina, protests continue against the economic policies and cuts promoted by the government of Javier Milei as social movements demonstrate due to lack of food for popular soup kitchens. Hello, welcome to From the South. I'm Luis Alberto Matos from the teleSUR studios in Havana, Cuba. We begin with the news. The Israeli occupation army continues its siege against the Palestinian people in the West Bank, as one of its latest genocides was the murder of a young man in the city of Beit Rima. A surveillance camera recorded the death of the Palestinian teenager shot by Israeli soldiers, who was confirmed by health officials as Anis al-Rimawi, a 17-year-old. On the other hand, Al-Fit hospital authorities also reported the arrival of 7 local people shot and wounded in connection with the Israeli forces' aggressions in the town of Beit Rima, northwest of Ramallah. Since October 7th, some 327 Palestinians have been killed in the West Bank, most of them shot by the occupation army, but 10 others by Israeli settlers. Palestinians in Gaza continue to face intensified shelling, which is even violating the alleged safe zones marked by the Israeli forces. A correspondent in the Strip, Nur Harasin, brings us the latest updates.
Palestinians are anxiously watching the new speech of Hassan Nasrallah, where he actually said that this Israeli attack on Lebanon, where Sheikh al-Aruri, a leader from Hamas, was killed, he says that this will not pass peacefully. This brings some hope for the Palestinians here in Gaza that maybe this is a great turn in the situation here on the ground in Gaza, specifically after Israel started intensifying its attacks on southern Gaza, specifically on Rafah, Khan Yunis, and also Middle Gaza. Let us talk about the Al-Maghazi refugee camp. Al-Maghazi refugee camp was marked as a safe area. However, Palestinians who are residing inside the camp, they woke up one day on the sounds of the heavy Israeli bombardment, and then the Israeli army started a land incursion, even though this area was safe. So now we have hundreds of families that managed to evacuate the Al-Maghazi refugee camp, but still we are talking about hundreds of other families inside the Al-Maghazi refugee camp that did not manage to evacuate. Recently and now, actually, while I'm talking to you, they are calling upon the Red Cross, the international community, the UN, whoever that can help to manage and evacuate them from inside the Al-Maghazi refugee camp. Nur Harazin, teleSUR, Gaza.
In Palestine, at least 13 people were killed this morning in a series of Israeli airstrikes targeting the Jabalia refugee camp and the city of Khan Yunis in Gaza Strip, as the Israeli genocide campaign on the enclave marked its 91st consecutive day. In northern Gaza, 5 civilians were killed as Israeli drones targeted the Al-Fallujah cemetery west of the Jabalia refugee camp. Meantime, the Israeli occupation forces continued its aerial and artillery bombardment on residential homes, buildings, and the tents of displaced in Khan Yunis in the southern Gaza Strip. The latest attacks resulted in the death of at least 8 civilians and injuries to several others since early hours of the day. In a preliminary toll, the ongoing Israeli aggression on the Gaza Strip amounts to more than 22,400 deaths, including more than 9,700 children and 6,800 women. In Palestine, residents of the Gaza Strip denounced the atrocities committed by the Israeli army in violation of international law to spare civilians.
They enter our homes and vandalize the children's rooms, the living room, the kitchen and the bathroom. My house is on the verge of collapse as they destroy everything inside. They even bombed the kindergarten in the neighborhood where our children were playing. On the 3rd of the month, at around 12 o'clock midnight, the Israeli army stormed the camp. They began bulldozing the streets, and when they blew up that building, It resulted in the damage of surrounding houses. The army also entered our homes and conducted searches.
On Friday, residents of the Gaza port, the main site for local fishing, announced the area had been almost completely destroyed by rounds of Israeli attacks amid the escalation of the armed conflict. In this sense, local media emphasized that after nearly 2 months of conflict, roads, houses, and other civilian facilities in the port have been severely damaged. Debris is everywhere and most fishing boats have been sunk or abandoned. The port is located near Gaza City's Rimal neighborhood and is the most important port in the entire strip, where local fishermen make their living. It should be noted that the port has been under a naval blockade imposed by Israel as part of its blockade of the Gaza Strip since 2007, and activities in the port have been restricted to artisanal fishing within a strictly limited radius. In Yemen, Houthi movement supporters demonstrated to commemorate the 10 fighters killed by the U.S. Navy in the Red Sea and in support of the Palestinian cause. Thousands of Yemenis in Sana'a marched in support of Gaza and the Palestinian resistance under the slogan, "The blood of the free people is on the road to victory." The political and military leaders also request that humanitarian aid, including food and medicine, be allowed to enter. The Yemenis call on the Arab and Islamic peoples and the rest of the world to put pressure and show their discontent until the Zionist massacres in Gaza are stopped. Massive demonstrations are also reported in other cities of the country. In Lebanon, resistance troops attacked assembly centers of the Israeli occupation forces in response to the recent aggressions and in support of Gaza. The Islamic resistance in Lebanon confirmed the destruction of the installations occupied by Israel as well as reconnaissance equipment. They conducted operations targeting Tel Aviv uniformed locations in the vicinity of Al-Manara, Al-Motila, and Stula. The Israeli media reported that the communities of the northern border with Lebanon are beginning to collapse due to forced displacements, due to the intensification of the bombings in the territory since October 7th. On Friday, the leader of Hezbollah, Hassan Nasrallah, during a speech warned the Israeli government that Hezbollah will respond swiftly on the battlefield to the assassination of Hamas deputy leader Saleh al-Aruri. On Tuesday, an attack by the Israeli occupation army killed Saleh al-Aruri in South Beirut. The crime was denounced by leaders in the region as the most senior Hamas figure to be killed by the Israeli occupation. In this end, Nasrallah assured his nation would not be silent in the face of violation of this magnitude and reiterated that his people would not expose itself to any foreign aggression. And during his speech, the Secretary General of the Islamic Resistance Movement, Syed Hassan Nasrallah, detailed that the resistance carried out more than 670 operations in 3 months.
During this stage, we attacked all the enemy's border positions, and a large number of rearward positions, and a large number of Israeli settlements. In response to attacks against civilians or military who were in these settlements. In a simple statistic, the Islamic resistance carried out more than 670 operations during 3 months. 670 operations. In some days, the operation reached 23.
Let's now take a short break, but remember you can join us on TikTok at teleSUR English, where you will find news in different formats, news updates, and much more. All the stories coming up. Stay with us. Welcome back from the South. The National Assembly of Venezuela ratified with a clear majority the current Board of Directors for a new legislative term of 2024-2025. On behalf of the ruling bloc of the Homeland, Deputy Diosdado Cabello recognized the merits of the Board of Directors headed by Jorge Rodriguez in terms of peace and security of the South American country, and proposed to ratify Rodriguez as President, Pedro Infante as First Vice President, and America Perez as Second Vice President. The parliamentarians paid honors before the statue of the liberator and father of the homeland, Simón Bolívar, in the park that bears his name in the capital. Furthermore, they also mentioned that in 2024 they will establish routes to maintain unity within the homeland bloc in order to ensure the development and welfare of all Venezuelans.
The approval also of the pending laws of the People's Power to make them more dynamic. We have pending the approval in second discussion of the law of communes and a law that will bring the function of the communities closer to the new realities of our self-sustaining economy, based on enterprise and also based on the organized growth of our economy. the political and territorial organization of the community, along with their involvement in economic activity, is a fundamental element to be discussed in the new law.
The re-elected president of the legislative body highlighted the progress of the economic recovery that the country is experiencing from 2021 to 2023.
If you review a little bit what has been the work, the elaboration of the laws of the National Assembly of the years 2021, 2022, and 2023 have been mainly directed to strengthen this process, a new Venezuelan economy, the recovery of Venezuela's economy. Now nobody can deny, at this point, nobody can deny, even though there were voices of doom and gloom, who said that the dollar was going to end at 70, that it was going to end at 80, that inflation was going to shoot up. They said that in January 2023. Well, now reality, which is implacable, has pointed out what really happened. A process of economic recovery that now has to be directed towards the consolidation of prosperity and the welfare state that was so attacked here.
In Argentina, protests continue against the economic policies and cuts promoted by the government of Javier Milei. Social movements demonstrated on Friday both at the headquarters of the Ministry of Human Capital and near the hotel where President Milei has been staying for the last 2 months. The police have reinforced security by placing fences outside the hotel, although demonstrations have been peaceful. The members of the social organization Somos Barrios de Pie have called for these demonstrations due to the lack of food to sustain popular soup kitchens at vulnerable neighborhoods. Amid a worsening economic crisis fueled by the government's latest announcements and deregulating measures, social organizations demanded answers and government attention. In Japan, authorities on Friday said that the death toll from the recent 7.6 magnitude earthquake has climbed to 94, with 222 people still missing, and hopes for further survivors diminish fast. The towns of Wajima and Susu are two of the hardest hit by the quake, with the highest number of missing people, where it has been confirmed that many houses have collapsed. The Japanese Coast Guard is searching with a plane and a boat for people who could have been swept away by the tsunami caused by the earthquake. Experts have warned of strong aftershocks throughout this week, in addition to the rains that are hitting the area and that could cause landslides and also hinder rescue efforts. Flooding in the United Kingdom caused the evacuation of hundreds of homes in the capital and in the east of the country. Civil protection authorities and the fire department report that river levels continue to rise as a result of the rains, while hundreds of homes are being evacuated due to flooding, specifically in East London, central and southwest England. Authorities declared a state of emergency in Nottinghamshire, the most area vulnerable to flooding, and urged the general public to prepare for evacuation. Heavy rainfall will continue on Friday morning, and rail services in the country will be significantly affected due to flooding. On the other hand, the snowstorm and extreme temperatures continue to affect Sweden and other countries in the region. The severe cold caused the partial closure of the Swedish highway E22, where 1,000 people were trapped for almost a day and had to be rescued. In Naimaca, in the north of the country, minus 43.8 degrees Celsius was recorded on Thursday, the lowest January temperature in the Nordic country since 1999, according to meteorological authorities. Meanwhile, heavy snowfall in recent days and ice continue to affect traffic in western Denmark. The National Service of Natural Areas Protected by the state on Thursday indicated that Peru has been positioned as the country with the highest diversity of birds in the world. The official report highlighted that the nation reached a record of 1,879 species of birds to establish itself as the nation with the greatest diversity of birds on the planet, surpassing Brazil and Colombia. In turn, according to the registry of the Committee of Classification of South America, 19 new species were identified in Peru. On the other hand, the Minister of Foreign Trade and Tourism, Juan Carlos Matthews, emphasized that Peru is a mega-diverse country that has important destinations with unique endemic birds, many of them present in natural protected areas. We now have a second short break coming up, but before we invite you to join our WhatsApp community for our English-speaking audience, you can scan the QR code on screen to join directly and share the link to reach more people. Constant news coverage of Latin America and the Caribbean as well as the rest of the world. Stay connected and informed with teleSUR. Financial break, don't go away. Welcome back from the south. In South Korea, authorities ordered the evacuation of residents of Yeonpyeong and Bangyeong Islands, both located in the Yellow Sea, after North Korea's artillery shelling. The evacuation order was issued twice during the day on Friday at the request of the South Korean military after receiving a call from a military unit claiming that a maritime attack was taking place on the island of Yeonpyeong. The South Korean government reported that some 200 artillery shells were fired from the North Korean west coast toward the South Korean islands, and that fortunately there were no injuries or fatalities to military personnel or civilians. In response, the South Korean military fired artillery shells, increasing tension on the peninsula. South Korea's defense ministry says that a North Korean artillery barrage near two border islands was a provocative act and urged it to stop, warning Seoul would take appropriate measures in response.
On the 5th, North Korea fired for more than 200 rounds from around 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. in the areas of Hansangot in the northern part of the Bangyeong Island and Deonsangot in the northern areas of Cheongcheong Island. There was no damage to our people or military, and the point of impact is the northern area of the NLL, Northern Limit Line. This is a provocative act that threatens the peace of the Korean Peninsula and increases tensions by resuming artillery fire within the West Sea buffer zone after North Korea unilaterally insisted on breaking the September 19 military agreement on November 23, 2023.
In view of the events on the Korean Peninsula, the spokesman of the Chinese Foreign Ministry, Wang Wenbin, called for moderation to the parties to avoid an escalation in the region.
Under the current situation, we hope that all relevant parties maintain calm and restraint, refrain from taking actions that aggravate tensions, avoid further escalation of the situation, and create conditions for the resumption of meaningful dialogue.
On Friday, Russian authorities announced readiness to evacuate residents of the city of Belgorod due to the Ukrainian attacks. The governor of the Russian province of Belgorod, Vyacheslav Gladkov, stressed that in order to be evacuated, the residents must submit their respective requests. In turn, Gladkov added that in case that there are no more spaces available, he will ask to his colleagues from other Russian regions for help. For his part, he also assured that after the first shelling of Belgorod at the end of last year, he received dozens of calls from the heads of the neighboring provinces offering support and all necessary resources. So far, the authorities evacuated several families and assured they are doing everything they can and intend to do so without delay. Senegal's Supreme Court on Thursday upheld a 6-month suspended sentence imposed on jail opposition leader Ousmane Sonko, a decision that lawyers say jeopardizes his chances of running in February's presidential election. Presidential candidate Sonko has been at the center of a confrontation with the state that has lasted more than 2 years and triggered several mobilizations of his supporters. In the meantime, the state's lawyer El Hadji Diouf stated that the sentence and the fines have been confirmed, and he makes it clear that the final decision on Sonko's eligibility to run for president rests with the Constitutional Council. Despite the state's refusal to provide him with the necessary documents to run, Sonko's camp maintains that he is still eligible to run, as a judge ordered in December that he be put back on the electoral roll. And we have come to the end of this news brief. You can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. You can also join us on social media, Facebook, X, Instagram, Telegram, and TikTok. For TeleSUR English, I'm Luis Alberto Matos. Thank you for watching.
Every year, thousands of people leave their homeland to reach new horizons. A reality of those people who struggle for their freedom. Know the diverse causes of those who live between borders. Thursdays, only on teleSUR. In a world that doesn't stop, we give you space to keep up to date